So for this video, I'm going to be showing you how to take our WRX addressable retrofit kit on the website and put it into your own set of WRX headlights. This particular kit is based on the base model 2014 to 2021 WRX. So this style light. So some of them have LEDs and stuff, so it'll be a little different on that. This kit won't exactly fit right on that one. But the main goal of this one was to make it easier for people that want to try to do this stuff themselves. They don't want to have to worry about the long backlogs of the many builders that are doing these kits. And just ultimately to have the pride of knowing that you did it yourself. So what I have here, I have one set that's been done, a side that's been done. This one I had already stripped the chrome and diffused the sea light for my last video when I was showing off the sea lights. So normally it'll be all chrome, it won't look black like this, but the same basic layout is what you're looking for, with the single projector over here, the high beam, and then the sea light with the single bulb. For this particular set, I'm using a set of Eagle Eye headlights. Within the kit, you're going to get a pair of halos. You're going to get a pair of sea lights. I will have an option between the UCS version, which is 12 volt, and the SK. It'll be a little bit different in price because there is a little bit more involved with the wiring on my end. The goal of this is to be solder free. You shouldn't have to solder anything. It should be just pretty much basic tools. You're going to need a Dremel or some other kind of cutting tool, depending on what you want to do. You could get away without it, but we'll go into that when we get a little bit closer. And you'll need an oven to open up the lights, screwdriver. I think that's about it tool-wise. There really wasn't a whole lot. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. The harness is here. That is included. The projectors are included with brackets attached. The demon eyes are attached with their brackets. I've even got the back cap cover, wire taps, so you can tap the wires necessary on the outside of the lights. Everything internal will have quick plugs. The Ghost controller potted with the inverter built in. Quick connects and wire taps for the turn signals, and the DRL will actually as well tap in. And then there will also be the harnesses that will go to the actual headlights. These will come out of the headlights, and then plugs that will go inside the headlights. So you will need I use a speed bit that has basically like a taper on it, so you can cut a larger hole, because these do require a little bit of a larger hole to put them on. As well as butyl to reseal the headlight is included, and 4 breather patches so that your lights do not get condensation. That's all included in the kit, so as you can see, it's a pretty comprehensive kit. I try to include everything that you need to have a top, good, nice looking addressable build. The projectors are LED, bi-LED projectors. Alright, so let's get into it. So for the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open this light, and I'll get this one off to the side, and we'll go over to the oven. So for the headlight itself, there are several screws on the back that you have to remove. There's one here, there's one up here, there are 3 on this side, and there's another one right in here, and you'll have to remove all of those screws. So make sure you don't lose your screws. Put them somewhere that you remember where they are. And as far as the headlights go, they're sealed with one of 2 different sealants. There's a butyl, which is kind of like a normal, it's like a sticky glue. When it gets hot, it's easy to open up. In cold form, it holds together pretty well. And then there's a I don't even know what it is. It's kind of like a glue ball or something. It's really weird. You'll know what it is. If it's not butyl, I'll show you what butyl is when we get this open. Then it's that. It's easy to open. That's not an issue, but you're going to want to pull it out. It's like just this long, sticky string, and you're going to pull that out. Just throw it away. You don't want it. We got butyl will be in the kit, so you'll have more than enough to seal both lights. Way more than enough if you have, like, if it's an eagle eye light like this one, like an aftermarket light, it'll just be the butyl, and you'll already have butyl, so you just add a little bit more on top to make sure it has a good seal when you put them back together. But it'll be one of those two. As far as the oven goes, I'm using a shop oven. It's kind of like a lab grade oven, so it's a little bit beefier. But on your oven, you want to put it about, like, I usually do like 215 for like 15 minutes. Some people go like 270 for like 5 minutes. Plastic melts at about 250 if it's in there too long. I don't like doing that, especially with hot spots. So personally, I go 215 for about 15 minutes. On this oven, it's a little different because it's convection, but in a regular kitchen oven, about 215 for 15 minutes. Now you're going to want to make sure that you have something to put the light on inside of the oven, like a couple blocks of wood. I've seen people use cookie sheets with like towels on them, but something that protects the plastic from any metal components within the oven, because you have a chance that things are going to warp, melt, other things like that if you don't. So that's important to do. In my case, this oven is only used to open up lights, so I've got a big block of wood in there. I just put it right on top. I never have a problem. But you know, if you're in a pinch, you know, like a towel on a cookie sheet works pretty good. So I'm going to put this in here for the time. Like I said, it's about 15 minutes at 215 or so, and then we'll come back. All right, so we're ready to come out. Now the glue is nice and soft now, so you could probably almost get this by hand, but normally I like to use steel splitters. So if you build a lot of lights, these are really good. I like them. If not, screwdriver works pretty good. You can get it in there, and this is the butyl that I was talking about. And just like that, the cover is off. Now be very careful that you don't touch anything on the inside, because the inside of that lens is coated, and if you scratch it or you get fingerprints on it or something, you're pretty much screwed. So you don't want to wipe it down, you don't want to touch it, you don't want to sneeze on it, you don't want to drool on it, you don't want dust on it, you know, you don't want nothing. So best thing to do is just kind of put them out of the way. If you got a box you can put them in, or something anti-static, something that, you know, you won't get that dust clinging to it, that helps. In a case like this is a pretty quick build, so I'm just going to set it to the side, away from where I'm working, and it'll be fine. But there are 3 screws on the inside of the light, which you have to remove in order to get this cover to pop out. But it will just pop out right like that. And there it is. So now we're back at the work table. So we have the front cover. Once again, this is usually going to be chrome. Now you can get away with just like a primer and then like a paint. If you want to take it black or some other color, or you want to do something fancy, you can get away with that. Generally, the best thing to do is to strip the chrome from it. There's 2 fairly common ways to do that. One is to use like an oven cleaner, like Easy Off. If you spray it on there, it will start to eat away at the chrome. Another option, if you do this a little bit more often, is to get concentrated degreaser. Or like Depp makes some that's really good. Put it in like a 5-gallon bucket with a lid, because you can reuse it tons of times. It's a little bit expensive, like, I think they're like $30 for like 5 gallons or something. So it might be a little bit expensive if this is just like you're doing it one time for yourself, but if you're a builder, you do it a lot, $30 is pretty cheap. That's not too bad. And mine lasts me usually a year before it starts to not be quite as effective on the chrome. You will want to remove anything clear, like the corner reflector here, as well as the sea light itself. And the sea light has pop tabs that you can depress to get it to pop out. I just push that one, it pops right out. Push the one at the bottom here. And then this back half, you can just pull it right out like that. And it'll get out of the way. And then as far as this side reflector goes, you just got one little pop tab here. And you can just kind of push that through and then it'll pop right. Just like that. Now, I covered this in another video, but I'll cover it in this one too. So for the sea lights, normally they're a very clear color. With mine, I like to try to make them look more frosted, a little bit more white, so it hides the LEDs better. The best way to do this is with an abrasive sandblasting, basically. So like a 240 grit, maybe like a 180 grit aluminum oxide blast is what I use. And I'll just hit the front and the back until it gets a nice, basically all the gloss of the plastic should fade. As you hit it, just keep hitting it until you get rid of all the gloss, and it'll have that nice frosted look. Another step that I do after that, I will spray the inside of it with this paint here. Seems to work pretty good from what I've used. I've been pretty happy. I just spray the inside of it, just a light coat, good dusting, and it is translucent, so it will allow some light through. It's kind of like an opaque color, but it does diffuse well, so I do like this. It works definitely really well with the UCS because it's so bright that it will overpower it more. With the SK build, if you go that route, this may dim your LEDs a little bit. That's the problem with diffusion, is sometimes it'll dim stuff down. I would not worry at all with UCS. I'd just go ahead and do it. SK, that's kind of your call. If you just hit it with sandblast, that'll be pretty good. You don't have to do this at all. You can, a lot of people do these builds. This is about the only thing that I couldn't really do here and ship to you because I can't get these. But it is a nice touch. It's a nice little bit extra step. If you do have like a blast cabinet, you can just get some abrasive media. You can even use like an air eraser and a compressor. So if you have an air compressor and you have an air eraser, you can get an air eraser from Harbor Freight for like $30. It comes with a little bit of abrasive media. Might be enough to do both sea lights. Just that little bottle that they include with their kit for like $30. So it is a nice little step if you want to try to take it to the next level. Not a bad way to do it. $30 isn't horrible, and you still got the tool when it's all done, and all you really need is a low power air compressor. A little 8-gallon tank will do fine with an air eraser. It's not like an actual sandblasting setup where you have to have like higher pressures. 8-pound tank, 8-gallon tank is plenty. All right, so I'm going to move this out of the way. And this is another thing. Hey, you got the lights apart. If you want to do a fancy paint job, dress it up a little bit, that's your call. Like I said, I usually do strip the chrome down to the black plastic. And for these, some people want them tinted, some people want them blacked out, some people want whatever. Keep in mind, street legal wise, you have to have these reflectors on your car. Somewhere on the car. It doesn't have to be in the lights, but you do have to have a reflector on the sides of your car legally on the street. But car guys, that doesn't really generally stop us from having fun. So do at your own discretion what you think is best. So included in the kit is a halo. There's two ways that you can do the halo. So you can mount the halo directly on top using like fishing line. You can just drill like a hole through the sides and then just secure it with fishing line directly to the front of the light. The thing I don't like about that is that the halo will stick out a little bit on the sides. I think it looks a little bit tacky. It's not bad, it's not horrible, I've seen way worse, but for me, I do like it recessed. So if you're going to recess it, it's really not too bad. You just need a Dremel, and if you cut the inside and then use like a sanding disc to keep making it bigger until this fits right inside, it will sit in there just flush and fit really nice and look really good. So now I got the halo in there. You see, I took one of the flapper wheels like this here. I like to use them on the inside, and that helps to get it closer. You just keep checking that halo to see how close it is. And you want it to be a nice snug fit, but you don't want it to be loose. I mean, if it's loose, you can probably put some glue in there, maybe some Gorilla Contact adhesive or some JB Weld putty, epoxy putty on the back side. That would probably secure it pretty well if you do end up overshooting a little bit. Just take it slow, go at it slowly, and just take little bit by little bit, keeping it round, checking the halo to see how it fits until it fits in there nice and flush. But when you do, as you can see, it sits a lot flusher in there. It just looks better on the car in general, and that's the way that I like to do it. But if you don't want to take that step, you can easily put it on top, secure it with a little bit of fishing line through a couple little holes if you drill them. That'll work just fine as well. You can use halo wire, but that you can see because it's like black or silver depending on what you use. I think fishing line's a little better because it does hide better within it. You want to orient the wire towards the top of the halo for where the sea light will come out at, and then I would secure with a little bit of glue. Gorilla Glue Contact Adhesive is really good here. You can put a couple dabs and that'll just secure the halo so it won't go anywhere. Let that dry and then move on to the next step. So for this part, we'll be putting the sea light in. Now the sea light, there's two variations. You got the SK and the UCS. Now the halo is a 5-volt halo, and the UCS sea light that I'll be installing in this set is a 12-volt UCS. So obviously you cannot run 12-volt to a 5-volt device. That will fry it. If you're running with an SK, which is also a 5-volt, so if you go with the SK kit, it'll be a little bit simpler for install. With this, I do have an included adapter, this right here, that will make it all work. You're just gonna have to plug up everything properly within the light, and I'll show you that. So I'll show you both directions, both methods. As for these, you can cut and solder these plugs. Just cut them off with enough lead on both sides that you can resolder them together, or you can disassemble them. I like to use these little keys. Keep in mind the orientation of the wires, the way that they are on the female plug, male plug, I guess it's male plug, red, green, white, and then on this one, looking at this orientation, white, green, red. So you're going to want to make sure you put them back in the same way. So just like that, I've removed the plugs. On the bezel, you are going to want to have holes drilled for the wires to go through. So I got one at the top here, one at the bottom, right on the edge. Just kind of line up the sea light to about where it's going to be at, and then go ahead and drill the holes to where they need to be. Another thing on these, so for the SK variant, they will just drop right in. You just have to drill those 2 holes and they'll drop right in. You'll be good to go. On the UCS version, you will have to remove a little bit more. You got to remove a little bit up top here, and then this channel down in here for them to fit, because the UCS being a brighter LED, it does create more heat, draw more power, so it does have to be a bigger PCB. So it was the only way that we could get them in there. It's a brighter LED, it's better, but there's more work involved in getting it to fit. That's why it's kind of a trade-off between how easy you want the install to be and how much work you want to have involved in it, for how bright you want the build to be, how good you want it to look. It's a trade-off. So I will go ahead and cut this one up. So I went ahead and got it notched out for the sea light down in the bottom there. You can kind of see the outline, as well as up in the top, for the top. So there it is, installed. And with these, you can install it just like this and it'll be fine, but just like everything else, I'm going to show you a little trick that some of us do that does make it install a little bit better and look a little bit better. Right here is kind of like a high spot on the light, this lip, and you can leave it there and it'll be fine. The cover will go over it, but it'll be really hard to get it to close in this corner, just because of the amount of pressure that it's pushing out that ridge. If you cut it out, it'll fit in there a lot better. You'll get a lot better seal. That goes to the SK and the UCS. The SK will fit a little better than the UCS because there's no LEDs on the back, or the controllers for the LEDs on the back. But either way, you're going to fit better if you trim out this ridge. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that out now. So I've went ahead and trimmed it out back there, so there's plenty of room for it now. So you can see as it'll fold down a lot tighter. So now I can actually take the sea light here, line it up, and there it is, all snapped into place. Don't force too hard down along here, because this bottom part will try to go up on the LEDs. So when you're trying to push it in, if you just slide it like a screwdriver under there, you can actually kind of pry it up a little bit, and it should just slide right over the LEDs. So I mean, be careful, because if you do apply too much pressure, this can go directly onto the LEDs and cause issues, and that'll, obviously mess up the boards. So you don't want to do that. But there it is. You can see it's installed. Because I recessed it, it did get a cleaner fit on there, and the LEDs, they don't really stick out too far. I mean, it's close, but unfortunately we can only go so thin on the UCS. The SK, it is much more drop-in friendly, so keep that in mind if you are considering which kit to get. So once it's in place, a little bit more glue is a good idea. So I mean, once you know that everything is good to go, you may test everything first before you go back and do this. Like, get everything together, run all your wires inside the light, drill all the holes, do everything you got to do, then come back, and then go back over these corners. But basically, you're going to want to glue down these contact points. It's got the one up top in the corner, one here, one there, one here, and then one in this corner here. And that way, they don't try to go away on you, like what's in the car. If they try to pop out of socket for some reason, vibrations or something. Won't do that if you put a little bit of like Gorilla Glue, contact adhesive, or something like that on the corners. I'm going to go ahead and put these pins back in. And just please don't forget what color order they go in. Depending on if you're looking like with the tab up on this plug, it's red, green, white. And same thing on this one with that little top indent tab on the top here. It's white, green, red. And you're going to want to make sure that order is correct. If you're running the SK, all you're going to want to do is connect these two together. That's connecting the halo to the strip. Being that this model is the UCS. I have this adapter here, and what that does is it just plugs in to the halo and to the sea light, and then this here plugs into the bottom of the sea light. And the way that works is this is an addressable LED, so the data line runs in series, so it'll run from the bottom of the sea light to the top of the sea light, come out, and then run to the halo. So that green wire is a data wire, so it just runs through, tells the halo what to do. So that's why that's there. I secure this with some more Gorilla Glue adhesive. The way it's intended is just to kind of put the wire like that, then to secure these with adhesive and let all that dry. And you can cut these off. These are extra power injection lines, but you won't be needing them on these builds, so you can actually just cut them off. So I'm going to hit adhesive in those spots that I've told you, and then kind of blow all this off, get the dust off from all the Dremel work that I was doing on it, and then I'll come right back. Alright, so I was able to hit it all with adhesive in the spots that I mentioned. So now the wires are nice and secure. I actually use a CA adhesive. It's a, I can't remember the name, sialogen or something like that. But it's a two-part adhesive. You put it on kind of like super glue, and then you spray it with an aerosol, and it instantly dries and cures. That's really good to use if you're a builder or something. It's nice to have. But if you're, getting stuff local, Gorilla Glue will work really well. You just have to wait a little bit longer for it to dry. From there, on the UCS, because you cut this out, you can actually close up a gap that is an issue on most of these WRXs. This bottom part here, it actually leaves a gap a little bit so you can see the LEDs on the light. It's not a huge deal. You can only really see it if you're looking low on the car. But being that it's a UCS, we've already cut this part here. It gives us flex here. And we can actually push this up using putty, epoxy putty. This stuff will dry pretty quick, so it actually won't take too long. What I do recommend first, though, so that you don't accidentally push up any epoxy onto the LEDs, because if you do that, you won't be able to see the LEDs, so you don't want to do that. So use like some electrical tape. We're basically just using the epoxy putty to push up on that. So cover up the LEDs hole so that you can't accidentally push anything up in there. Like that. And then I like to use a glove because this stuff's a little sticky. Just work that stuff in and then use it to push up on that to kind of close that gap a little bit. And then I just use a little C-clamp on there to kind of hold it up into place while it cures. Usually only takes a couple minutes. I mean, honestly, you could hold it there, you'd probably be fine. But I don't know, this way works fine for me. So you can see it's just closed up the gap there with the LEDs and make it look a little bit nicer. So for the next part here, we're going to be removing this entire section here. You leave that chrome, paint color, paint options, that's all your choice, whatever you want to do. You will not have a high beam anymore here. Your high beam and low beam are going to both be here. That's what bi-LED is. So bi-xenon you might be familiar with, that's HIDs, bi-LED is LED. And so that's what we're going to be replacing this with. So the high beam will go away. So you can paint that black, paint it whatever color you want. I've done some with red, like a red reflective in there. It looks kind of cool. Like a metal cast. I think metal cast makes kind of the same idea. Of pull your bulbs out the back like that. And you got 3 points. The OEM lights might be a little bit different on this part. I don't remember how they have it secured. You may have to actually unscrew it the whole way. But I know these are eagle eyes, and they will just pop out if you just squeeze these tabs with a pair of pliers. So like that, and it'll pop right out. Put that to the side for a second. Now we're going to pull this projector out. The projector has 4 screws. So it just comes out like that. We're not going to be using this anymore. You can keep it, use it for something else, or trash it, whatever you want to do. We are going to be using the 4 screws, so make sure you keep those. I'm going to strip this paint, well, the chrome off, and then I'm going to prime it and paint it, and then we'll come back and we'll get to the next part. So I got my drill and my speed bit. I've got my breather bit patches. There's 4 for each light, so 8 total. You're going to want to put 2 on the top, probably, you know, about each corner, each side, and then 2 on the bottom, probably about like there. Make sure that there's nothing on the inside that you're drilling into. These lights, there's not a whole lot in there, but you know, definitely make sure that you're not hitting anything important. And I'm just drilling a hole big enough, so if you look at the patches, there's the breathable part, and then the adhesive part. You ideally want to make this the same size as that. The bigger the better, because it's going to breathe better. So you're going to drill those 4 holes, 2 on the top of the light, 2 on the bottom of the light. Secure the tape, the breather patch like that, and that's going to help to reduce the condensation. A lot of people will get lights, they'll get condensation, and they'll assume that's actually leaking lights. A lot of times that's not what it is. A lot of times it's actually just condensation because the lights aren't breathing well enough. 4 patches on a light is overkill, but I'd rather do overkill than not enough, and then you have issues. So 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. So far it's worked pretty well for most of the lights I've done. So my patches are in now, so the light can breathe. The next part that I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the cable gland for the wiring. So location wise, I like to put it right here. So if you just drill in sideways there, that's a good spot for it. Keep in mind you do have this shaft here, so you're going to want to, you know, when you go in, just be a little bit careful. So there's my hole. That's where this is going to come in. So this is the plug that will actually go to the controller. These are the DRL connections. So you're going to tap into 2 different locations in the back of the light. So this will not go in the light. These parts will. So you're going to take this cable gland, spin off the nut on the bottom there, and then just fish all these wires through it. Right like that. Then you're going to fish those same 3 plugs through the hole, just like that. And then you're going to fish this right back around those same 3 plugs. Right like that. Screw it on. And this is another good spot where you can use some more of that adhesive to secure the nut so it doesn't try to back out on you. Then on the back side here, just kind of get it where you need it. And then you can tighten down on the set nut for the actual cable gland. And that'll kind of secure the wiring as well as help to make it more watertight. So that wiring is secure now, it won't go anywhere. And this will be the plug that connects the lights up. So I went ahead and got this painted up, everything dried overnight. Figured I'd come back at it this morning and finish up. Obviously you don't have to paint the whole thing because most of it's going to be inside the light. You can if you want to, but it's redundant. You really don't need to. This is the only part you're going to see. I usually paint along the top, the sides here, that way any angle you see you're not going to see anything but the black. But once again, you don't need to paint any of this. I did strip it so you can see all the chrome is removed except for like this corner, which once again didn't really matter. But you can see this is with using degreaser. It works really well. If this is something you're going to be doing a lot of, I highly recommend getting degreaser, about 5 gallons, put in a 5-gallon bucket. It's great to have set aside. You can just throw anything that's chrome plated plastic in it. It will strip it right off. As long as it's not clear coated. There is some stuff that's like really good OEM stuff. I think they like clear coat over top of the chrome, or there's something else to it because it does not like to remove. But most of the Eagle Eyes, stuff like this, it'll remove no problem, real easy. As far as the projector goes, it is a pretty much ready to go drop-in projector setup. I've got a back cap, I've got wire taps for both high and low beam. The demon eye is already installed. This is the driver for the projector. Everything is ready to go. The bracket's installed. Just like I said, the demon eye is installed on top there. Etched lenses installed, everything ready to go. These are directional, meaning that one bracket will be for the left side and one bracket for the right side. Basically, it's just a flip bracket, so it's kind of mirrored, basically. So they'll be pre-installed, but if you put one projector in, it doesn't line up all the holes right, just grab the other projector, throw it in there, and it'll line up, and then use this one on the other light. So the projectors do kind of matter which light they go in, but you'll see because they won't line up. You see this one here, it lines up perfectly fine. I will put the 4 screws in, and then we'll move to the next step. And there it is, installed, all ready to go. On the back side, you've got a couple little things that are going to be kind of hanging up and in the way. So what I like to do is secure this here with a zip tie. Just like that. And then for this, I put some 2-sided tape on it and secure it right down here like this. Just right like that. So now we're ready to put the light, actual light frame back into the bucket. And you're going to want to push these wires back through this hole. You can pull this cap off to make it a little bit easier. You're also going to have these wires here for the demon eye. Those are going to plug into these wires here. So got one there. And that one for the input. This is the part that's going to plug up to the front of the front cover that's going in. And they will slide right back in. You want to make sure that these don't fall out. You can kind of like go behind them with the flat head just to kind of push out the little tabs to make sure the tabs are firmly seated. It does kind of stink when you get everything sealed up and then one of them decides to pop out. So let's just take a couple extra seconds and just to make sure that it's good to go. Go ahead and get your cap back on here. Just slides right around that high beam. And then just use the old bulb to fill in the hole, and that'll keep it watertight. As for this side, because we no longer have the projector sticking out the back, you will have to use this cap. So just take the old cap like this, and you're going to work it around this cap. And you can see it'll stick out just a little bit, but it's not too bad, not nearly as bad as like an HID kit would be. And then this will slide right in like that. So the wires that you have coming out, the two short ones are your low beam. Red is power, black is ground. These two are for your high beam. For the high beam, they're not polarity sensitive, so you can actually just tap either one of the high beam wires with one and then the other. Do the same to that one. And you are tapped into your high beam. If you want the high beam bulbs to still work, you can leave it as is, and the high beam bulb will still work, but you'll still get high beam and low beam out of this. Keep in mind, if you painted it black, that is heat that will hit your paint, and it can warp and bubble the paint depending, you know, how much you use your high beams. And it's really redundant. You don't need it because this is a better high beam anyways. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut these because they aren't needed. And that way I still get my signal for the high beam for the projector, but I won't get any output from the actual high beam bulb. Also keep in mind the high beam bulb is a running light as well, unless you've done any resistor mods or anything like that. This is still the running light. So this will disable the high beam running light so that the C light and the halos can be your running lights. And that is what this part is. So this here is a splitter. There are diodes in here that prevent it from backfeeding, so one wire won't feed the other wire. So basically what we do with this is we'll tap into your parking light, which is this one up here, which is normally the one that goes to your C light bulb. Just tap the red wire for that one. For the other wire, we're going to come over here and we're going to tap the high beam power wire. Like that. Now you can secure this up any way that you want. Electrical tape is probably fine. That's what I'm going to use. And then you have the low beam bulb here. So this is a low beam. Red's power, yellow is ground. And you're going to tap these into those. This one is polarity sensitive, so you want to go red to red. And at least in the case of the Eagle Eyes, it's yellow is your ground. Worst case, if you do this backwards, you won't fry anything. But the low beams won't turn on, so your actual lights won't turn on. And if that is the case, then just go back here with these wirings. And I mean, you can even get to this from when it's on the car, but go back here and just flip these around. So, you know, run this to the other wire and then this one to the other wire, and that will get your low beams working properly. So that is now connected. You have your low beam connected, your high beam's connected, your DRL is connected, everything's installed inside. You will not need this bulb anymore, so we're going to remove that. You can even cut the plug if you want. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So everything is assembled exterior. Now we just have to reassemble the light. You want to make sure that you blow everything out, wipe everything down really good. You can use a microfiber cloth and some alcohol, which will help a little bit. Be careful around painted areas with the alcohol because that can dim it up a little bit. You know, like the lens and other things like that, you just want to kind of go over it to try to take off any fingerprints that you might have left. You know, if I don't like working with gloves all the time. Sometimes I do because you kind of have to. Other times I try not to and just to avoid what I touch. But if you use like gloves or use like latex gloves especially, it does help to cut down on the potential for fingerprints. So that's something to consider if you want to go that route. I don't like to myself, but a lot of people do, and it's really not a bad idea if you do. So now, before we go ahead and close up these lights, you're going to want to go ahead and test everything to make sure that it's working. Make sure everything's lined up. Make sure that all the LEDs are working properly. If there are any issues, now's the time to try to fix them before you seal it up. So on this, we have this pigtail on the bottom. It will plug into the 5-pin JST that is sitting under the light. Just like that. Then we're going to feed all this stuff in and attempt to fit the bezel where it should sit when everything's put back together. And just like that, it's a pretty good fit. Looks like everything lines up really well. The projector, the halo, nothing's touching. It really shouldn't be unless you messed with the alignment brackets, and maybe it could, but assembling it the way that we did, it really shouldn't change anything. From that, we're also going to take this plug it into our harness. There is a 5-pin and a 6-pin plug on the harness. So this light is the 6-pin, being that it is the one with the DRL. The other side does not have that DRL wire. We only need one signal. We don't need it from both lights, so it is not on the other light. So it's a 5-pin plug. So passenger side is a 5-pin plug. No DRL wiring that has to be done. The driver side is a 6-pin plug with the 2 wires that have to run to the high beam and the parking light. Once that's done, I will go ahead and connect the power to the controller. You will get a blue light for a short period of time when applying power to UCS products. UCS defaults to a blue until the data tells it to turn off. So these C lights that we have in this particular light are UCS. We also have the SK variant. The SKs will not light up blue, so you won't see that. The Demon Eye is UCS on both lights, so it will light up blue either way. So we'll go ahead and connect in the app to the controller. And test everything out. As you see, everything's flowing as it should. Now I've already programmed this controller, so that's why everything is flowing the way that it should. Normally it'll probably flow more like this. And in order to fix that, you're going to have to follow my other video to actually program the lights for the C lights and everything. I usually do this as a halo. I do this as a halo. I do this as a strip. And then I just adjust the orientation of each until I get it where I want it. But being how versatile the controller is, you can design this any way that you want. If you want it to flow up, down, whatever you want to do. You want to put the completion point down here or something, you can do that by tweaking the controller, deciding how to do it. Ideally, you have the endpoint here if you're doing a halo. If you want it down here, you're going to have to add a strip part up here and then make this the halo. That way the completion is here, because you want it both to start and then finish, which means it has to be the same amount of LEDs going each way. So whatever the finish point is, you need the same amount of LEDs going up here as you do going down here, or else it will throw it off. Hopefully that makes sense. But so yeah, but we'll follow my other video. It'll show you how to play it, tweak it, mess with things, and you can always go back later and mess with things again. That's the beauty of the app and the controller and the way it's designed. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off and kill my power, disconnect from the controller, and disconnect this from the housing, and we'll go over to the oven and we'll start getting everything ready to seal up. So being that we're at the end now, getting ready to seal everything back up, I did go ahead and put gloves on. Also gonna go ahead and put this back on. But first, I'm going to go over it with a microfiber cloth. There's my new one. And just try to clean up any fingerprints or anything, any dust that might be on there. I already blew it out with compressed air, so that helps too. But especially if you're shipping these, if these aren't for your own purpose, maybe you're building them for other people, you know, the shipping process will knock a lot of dust loose if there's anything on the inside. It's almost inevitable, so don't get too discouraged if you do get a little bit of dust that ends up finding its way from the back of the house headlight into the actual lens. It happens, but you definitely want to try to reduce it as much as possible. And, you know, compressed air, wiping it down with alcohol, wiping it down with a microfiber to finish it off, that helps. So that's what I did there. And I'm going to put this back on. You just got those two tabs in the front, and it just snaps right in. So for the next part, we're going to grab the lens cover that we set aside and seat this in there. You want to put in that side corner first. And then there's little holes that you have to line up with the cover in each one of the three corners. Go ahead and just secure all three screws. And you can just knock off any dust that might have landed on there. Once again, you don't want to touch the inside of the light because that coating on the inside will get scratched up if you do. Next, we're going to take this light and using your butyl, we're going to seal around the sides. It just comes like that. I'm not going to use a brand new one since I do have a roll that I've been using here, so I'm going to use that. But it's the exact same stuff. This just has a lot more in it. If you are using eagle eyes, like I said, you've already got a lot of the stuff in there, so chances are you're not going to use this whole roll. But if you are using OEM lights, then you're going to want to remove that sticky glue bead that's in there. I mean, it all come out as one piece. You'll know what it is. This stuff is butyl, so we're just going to put it over top of it. I like to start on the bottom. That way it's a continuous bead the whole way up top. You're less likely to leak at the bottom as you are on the top. So if you're going to have to run them together, I'd rather run it on the bottom just on the off chance that that is a hole where water can get in. It shouldn't, it won't, it's unlikely, but it's just safer that way. To just kind of stretch it, because you don't want to overfill this hole. If you put too much in there, it's going to be really hard to get the cover on, and then stuff is just going to ooze everywhere. You're basically just trying to top it off, put a little bit extra in there to give it a better seal, so you're less likely to have any leaks. Because when you pulled this cover off, you upset the glue and where it's setting, and it's got a good chance that there's somewhere where there's not much glue because it got pulled out or it got moved somewhere, moved one way or the other. This will just go ahead and make sure that you got that good seal. And there you have it. It's basically just in there nice and loose. You can kind of push it in there a little bit better. That way you know that it's where you want it to be. Just use like a screwdriver, flathead, Phillips, it don't matter. Just trying to get it to make sure that it's all stuck where you want it to be so you got a good seal. Ideally you want it deep in there, more so than up at the top or on one of the sides. And that way when you put the lights back together, you know you have a good seal. So now we know that's good. I'm going to go ahead and go over the lens again. I'll blow it all out and go ahead and put the cover on and get ready to go with that. Okay, so I've blown it all out once again. There's no dust that I can visibly see. It does appear that I got it all out of there. Like I said, yeah, good luck getting all the dust out. It's almost impossible, but you definitely try to do as good as you can to get as much of it out as you can to make sure that everything goes back together super clean. None of us are working in static-free environments, so stuff does happen. You do get some dust, and you know, just keep that in mind. But you can get pretty darn clean and pretty low dust. I do have an air purification unit in here that helps, but you're still going to have to deal with some dust. Check that lens real good to make sure you didn't get any fingerprints on it. Sometimes if you hold it in the light, you kind of move it around a little bit, you can see them if they pop up. I don't see any, so this one's good. Next, you're going to take this cover. Do not forget to plug in your front, or else none of these LEDs are going to work. Just like that. And go ahead and put the cover and just kind of rest it where it's going to sit. It'll be a little bit difficult to try to push it on, so don't bother. Just get it about where it needs to be, and once it heats up, the glue will soften and it'll just go right on real easy. So I've already got the oven started up. It's warming up. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that in. Do make sure that you preheat the oven. If you're using a regular kitchen oven, like I'm sure most people are, make sure you preheat, because in the heating process you generally create hot spots, and once everything levels out, generally everything's a lot safer for stuff. Hot spots, obviously not great for plastic. It can warp things. Once again, remember to use something to protect all the plastic from any metal. A towel over a cookie sheet is a really good way to do it. There are probably other ways to do it. Fortunately, the WRX lights are pretty small, so they should fit in your oven pretty good. I actually got this oven for multiple reasons. One is the convection, so it makes things like Permaseal easier to deal with. But it is also pretty big. I can put big lights that are not going to fit in a normal oven, and they'll fit in this just fine without even having to angle anything or prop anything up. It just goes right in. I shut the door, it's fine. I could probably do two WRX lights in this oven side by side at the same time, no problem. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in. It's very important too to make sure that none of the wires are touching any plastic either, or any metal either. So what I like to do is I like to take the pigtail that goes to the controller, tuck it up under the headlight, and then just set the headlight on top of it, and that just keeps it out of the way. It keeps it from trying to touch any metal or anything, because you can melt that. Obviously the warranty doesn't cover anything melted, so you want to be really careful about that. Other things that the warranty is, so the warranty on these is a 2-year on the LEDs. So if any of the LEDs decides to go out or something, you know, just pull it apart, send it back to us. We'll send you a brand new one within 2 years at no cost. That does not include if you cut the wires and you wire them up wrong. You know, if you send 12 volt to a 5 volt LED, it's not going to last long. So, you know, obviously we can't cover that. It doesn't cover melting. When you run the harness in the car, it's very important that you keep it away from hot things that would scold you if you touch them by hand. So things like the radiator. I run the wires, you're already going to pull the bumper, run the wires in front of the radiator, and the supports is a good place to do it. So the top support of the radiator, you can actually put it up under there and zip tie it in place, and it'll just run right along the front of the car. You'll be fine. I mean, you're within a couple inches of the radiator, but you're not actually touching it, and that's not enough heat to do any damage. You'll be fine. But I have seen some people like literally duct tape the harness to the top of the radiator. That was not on a WRX, it was in another car, but yeah, don't do that. Don't get it near a turbo. Don't do any of that stuff. Keep it away from the wheels. Obviously, if you got wires hanging somewhere and they wrap around the wheel and it rips out, that's not a warranty thing. That's not going to be covered under warranty. So don't do any of that. Just, you know, be cautious of where you're putting everything. Zip tie everything in place is a good idea. The controllers, most of the time on the WRXs, is really easy. You put it right behind the headlight, in between the headlight and the battery on the driver's side. If you put it in there, it's really not going to go anywhere. That's where I usually put them. You do have the ability to secure them to something if you want. You can. That's not going to hurt you. It's not going to void anything, unless you're securing it to the turbo, then that might. But in general, you can secure it to whatever you need to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. The biggest thing is the wires, and making sure that they don't get anywhere that is either hot or anywhere that it could wrap around a moving part, your serpentine belts or anything like that. Another thing that is very important is power and ground. You have got to get good power and ground. There is no better source for power and ground on your car than your battery. And in the case of a WRX, the battery is right there. There's no other place in the car that makes any sense to put than the battery. You've got a power and a ground directly on the battery. Every power and ground on your car goes to the battery. Doesn't make sense to go anywhere else. The battery's right there. So you got 10 mil ring terminals, and we have a built-in fuse. This is a 10 amp fuse. In the event that you ever have to reset the controller or something's not working right, you want to go ahead and disconnect the controller really quick. The easiest way to do that is to pop this cap off and pull out the fuse that is inside of it. This is a standard ATM fuse, I think it is. It's kind of like a mini fuse, and you can get them anywhere. This is a 10 amp. 10 amp is plenty. That is a built-in fuse. You do not need to go to the fuse box because you do have a fuse built in. This is your ground. Red is your power. Go direct to the battery. Best way to do it. Ground chassis are not as good as battery. Go to the battery. Your LEDs will last a lot longer, and they'll be very happy that you did that. So do that. And then, yeah, as far as the rest of the controller, don't forget you do have these two yellow wires. These are your turn signals. There's one for each side of the car. So one will go to the passenger side, one will go to the driver's side. As you know, with that version of the WRX, the turn signals are in the lower DRL fog light bezel thing. So you can actually run to that. I believe it's a blue wire on that. You can find that online. It's all over the internet, but I'm pretty sure it's a blue wire down there on the turn signal. But you know, once again, if you put it to the wrong wire, it just won't work. You can't. If you send these to ground, it's not going to do anything. If you send it to the wrong 12 volt, well, it's just going to turn on at the wrong time. So I'm pretty sure it's the blue wire on the turn signal bezel DRL thing. Well, it's not DRL, but it's a fog light. And pretty sure it's the blue wire on that. Go ahead and tap it. Test your turn signals. If they don't work, then well, you got the wrong wire. But yeah, the controller, as I said, you can secure that pretty much anywhere you want to put it. Heat is really the only factor to consider. But you know, obviously ambient heat from the car, ambient heat from the engine bay, that should be fine. You really shouldn't have any issues with, you know, 150 degree engine bay. That's not going to cause any issues for any of this. It's direct heat, it's scalding heat. If you touch it with your hand and it's hot, none of this should be on it. If like you scald your hand, it burns your hand if you touch it. None of this should be touching it. Just think of it like that. But yeah, so that's the controller. I've got it in the oven. We'll come back here in about another 5 minutes, pull it out, and go ahead and get it sealed up, screwed up. I'll plug everything up. We'll run through a demo of it all, show it working, and that should wrap up the video. So now I'm pulling that out. And I'm just going to start pressing it together. We did fill it up, so it will be a little bit tight, but you should be able to get it to kind of go into the corners where it needs to go. You can use a set of pliers to help pull it in a little bit, but just be careful, because if you apply too much pressure too fast, it can snap the cover. This is mainly just to give you a little bit extra power to be able to pull it into the corner. And if you take it nice and slow, the adhesive will actually just move out of the way. And remember, you have 6 screws total. And there it is, all sealed up. And there are the lights, all done. I'm going to go ahead and plug everything up here. We will give it power, and we'll see what we got. As I said, they'll flash blue like that for a few seconds. I am going to connect to the controller now. And we'll see if we can get some show modes going. As far as the DRLs and stuff go, being that we wired them in direct, it's going to be a little bit hard to actually check them on a bench or anything. If you're using like a 12-volt battery, you're pretty much going to have to plug them into the car to actually test them out. But if your show modes are working, then you really should be good to go. Oh, there you go. I turned that off accidentally. So yeah, if the show modes are working, you should be good to go. As you can see, everything is working great on these. So I know that everything's wired up right and it's ready to go on the car. So the next step would be to go pull your bumper, put them on the car, wire them up. As I said, it's very simple. You got a power and ground of the controller. The controller itself has enough wiring to go from the driver's side battery over to the passenger side, and it plugs right in. Zip tie everything to make sure that it's secure from heat or anything else, because you don't want any of those issues. And then you're going to have your main plugs, which are plug and play at that point. Hope this was not too winded, but informative. That was the main purpose of it. There is a little bit of detail involved, because this is not just a really basic build. This is a little bit more involved, but you're going to have more of an outcome than you would be from just a set of sea lights and, you know, a basic halo. Being the full color flow set, LED projectors, everything upgraded. This should be night and day difference on your car from what you came with from the factory. Thanks for watching, thanks for your support, and hopefully we can do some more stuff like this in the future.